Welcome to HC BookTube. My name is Heather, and I'm going to do my May wrap-up. I kind of have it divided up in sections. What I'm going to do is go through the books that I read personally, and then I'll talk about the book that I read with my husband this past month, and what books we have read with our 8-year-old, soon-to-be 9-year-old daughter. Um, and then, I will also talk about my audiobooks. So I kind of have it divided up in sections. And then at the very end, I'll go over what we are currently reading. And won't talk much about the current books because I'll probably go over them in the next month's video, next month's wrap up. So just to start, we have a lot of books to go through. So I'm going to start. I finished A Wonder Book in Tanglewood Tales by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I talked about this the last couple of videos, so I'm not going to say much about it. Basically, Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote two children's books in one. Two children's books with telling Greek myths, telling them. I did finish that one up. I read 4 books in the Irish Tea Room Mystery Series. This is from a subscription service called Annie's, where they will send you a monthly crafts supplies like knitting and crocheting, embroidery. I personally don't subscribe to it. I just found out about it when I bought these books. I bought these books from the thrift store. So these books are little extra things you could buy from the subscription service. And basically the premise of the whole series is that a woman named Penny was born in Ireland, but her family moved to California. So she was kind of raised in the USA, in California, and but she decides to move back to Ireland to help her grandmother and her cousin Nora, run a tea shop. And then, of course, murders happen. And they are written by different authors. So first, and I do read them out of order. The first one I read, but this is actually the second in the series, is Steeped in Lies. And then the fourth, I skipped a book and got the fourth book, Claudia and Secrecy. Steeped in Lies is written by Jan Fields. Casey Cross wrote Claudia and Secrecy. Virginia Smith wrote Druid on Arrival. And Jan Fields again wrote Cottage in the Act. See if I don't want my hand to cover out the whole cover there. So these are nice. They're cozy mysteries. They are what they are. My favorite one was Druid on Arrival. Basically, the point of that one is that a convention, a sci-fi and fantasy convention, are taking tours in their town after the convention, and there happens to be a murder, so the people in the convention have to stay in town until the murder is solved. And the reason I liked it is because I've been to a couple conventions myself, and Virginia Smith, who wrote this book, she knows what it's like to be in a sci-fi fantasy convention. She's got it down pat, and I had to laugh. It's like, okay, so if you're stuck in a town because you have a murder case going on, what do? I have an idea. Let's make a sword fighting tournament, because why not? I could totally see that happening with the convention crew. And of course, the first time Penny sees members of the convention, they're all in cosplay and dress-up costumes. So that was fun. The other reason I liked Druid in the Act is because I thought people were acting more normally. I don't know, it seems like everybody was grouchy in the other 3 books. In the first one I read, The Steeped in Lies, I didn't like the main character, Penny. It almost stopped me from reading the other books, because she would honestly just get in people's faces and be like, I heard you say this. Why did you say this? Blah, 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 blah. It's like total stranger. She didn't even know. It was kind of a turnoff. And yeah, of course, she is an amateur. So just to let you know, she does have a boyfriend who is the captain of the Garda. In the first book, they were just kind of flirting with each other. By the Claudia and Secrecy, they are dating. So he keeps telling her, stay out of the investigation, but she doesn't. She always sticks her nose in. and she gets really right up into people's faces. And I kind of got turned off of her there. And in the Clara and Secrecy, I felt like I don't know, they were just grouchy with each other. It's like I know there's a murder going on, but the characters would just be talking normally, as friends and kind of just asking questions, and then all of a sudden something is said, and it's like, how dare you say that? And then they're back to talking naturally again, and it's just I don't know, it's just they always like attacked each other. And I think it was in this book that uh, Penny's grandma said it was the Irish temper. I don't buy that. I just thought it was weird how unnecessarily aggressive people were. In the last book I read, The Cottage and the Act, um, people were yelling at Penny. This one, a townsperson is actually found dead in an abandoned cottage. So they try to figure out the murder there. And when Penny starts sticking her nose in other people's business, they take offense to that. And she had a couple big, gruff men come up to her and say, "You stay out of my business," blah, blah, blah. And of course, she had to tell her boyfriend because she says that helps with the investigation. But to me, it kind of came off as like, "I'm going to tell my boyfriend on you." I mean, they're just cute books, but I don't know. How many murders can a person really go through? I mean, I never dealt with a murder, and all of a sudden, I don't know. They're not realistic, but they're fun. Um, One thing I want to explain, if somebody doesn't know what a clada is, this book focuses on a jewelry maker who comes to visit their town to do a jewelry show, and she specializes in cladas. And it's an Irish tradition. Get it off my finger here, because I'm part Irish myself. I have Irish roots, so I don't know if you can see that. It's a design that has two hands holding a heart with a crown on top of the heart. And usually there's jewels in the heart. Mine has very little diamonds in there. So basically the tradition is if you're single and not in a relationship, you put it on your left hand with the heart pointing out. When you are in a relationship but not married, you put it on your left hand with the heart pointing towards you. Then when you're engaged, it's the left hand with the heart pointing out. And then if you're married, as I am, you put on your left hand with the heart pointing towards you. So that's a clada. Just wanted to explain that to you, in case you didn't know. I also read, continue on with the books, I also read Brigands and Bread Knives. Now this is the final book in a series. And the way it went, for those of you who don't know, this is a popular series. I'm sure you've all heard of it before. It starts with Legends and Lattes, and this is about Viv, who is an orc, and she's retiring from battle. She decided she doesn't want to be a warrior anymore, so she settles in a town and starts up a coffee shop. Sounds boring, but I loved this book. I fell in love with it when I read it, and I read it first. I borrowed it from the library, and then I'm like, I gotta have that book. So that was the first book. And then the second book that was written is Bookshops and Bone Dust. And this was actually a prequel. This happens about 20 years before Legends and Lattes, where Viv, the orc, is just starting her career as a warrior. She ends up getting wounded, so she ends up in a town, not the same town with the coffee shop, but she ends up in a small town and has to stay there until she's healed from her wound. And while she's there, she helps a bookshop owner who is a ratkin, basically a human rat, I guess, a ratkin named Fern. And she helps her with the bookshop that she's setting up. And then an adventure happens. There's a little bit more action in Bookshops and Bone Dust than there is in Legends and Lattes. And then Brigands and Bread Knives happens after Legends and Lattes, but it doesn't really go involve Viv that much. It goes back to Fern, who was the ratkin in Bookshops and Bone Dust. So it follows Fern as she accidentally ends up in a journey with an elf named Asterix and a goblin named Zill. And they go on many adventures. So this one has even more action than the other two. But one thing I love, I think Travis Baldree just writes the most likable characters. I like even the antagonist, the guys you were not supposed to be rooting for. Can't help but like them. He's like, I don't know. He must kind of sometimes wonder about authors in their lives. It's like Travis must be, I don't know, really laid back person. he just he's probably so fun to be around. Just writes the most lovable characters ever. Um, so that's what I finished reading. Audiobooks, I read or listened to The Women by Kristen Hanna. I mentioned that in my last video, and I did finish that. And that's basically about a woman who is a nurse in the Vietnam War. She goes to Vietnam and is a nurse, and of course, when she comes back, there are a lot of people who hate the vets, so she gets bid on and kind of harassed for veteran period. But then she also can't get help from the VA, like psychological help or anything from the VA, because women didn't serve in the war; they were just nurses. So of course they don't have psychological damage. Yes, they do. Yeah, and so it was kind of a really emotionally rough book to listen to. Um, I I I don't know. Sorry to kind of pause there. It's just I don't know just how to explain how gut wrenching her situation was when she came back from the war. Well, even in the war, especially. Um, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. I listened to that, and this one again. Don't pay attention to Goodreads ratings because when I logged it into Goodreads, I read some of the 5 stars and I read some of the 1 star reads, and the 1 star reads were a whole long rants about how bad this book is and all the things that are wrong with this book. And I honestly thought, well, I'm going to hate this. They had that much to complain about. Quite frankly, I thought some of their complaints, after listening to the book, I thought some of the complaints were unwarranted. Um, she does have her point. She makes her points in her book, but she does not make every man hateful. Not every man in the book is a jerk. She does not make Christians look stupid. She has fair discussions. Her main character and other characters, they are atheists. They are feminists, what you call feminists, but it's a fair take on the feminists. For those of you who are more conservative minded and don't like the idea that all men are jerks, and if you're a person of faith, I don't think you would be offended by this book. I personally, I consider myself a Christian. I didn't find, and I like men. I'm married to one, and I love men. I did not find anything offensive. I thought they were fair points to make about what happened in history, how women were treated, especially in a male-dominated career. Basically, I didn't even tell you what the book was about. It's about a chemist, a female chemist, who has a hard time getting her foot into the chemistry world because she's a woman. She's the smartest one in the in her lab, but she's a woman, so they don't give her much credit. So she ends up being on a cooking show, national cooking show, and she, instead of like talking about cooking, really, she talks about the chemistry of cooking. She gives science lessons. Um, so I thought some of the complaints were unwarranted. It still wasn't my favorite book to listen to. You could tell it's a debut novel. I think I found some mistakes in there. I don't think the writer did a lot of research on history. I think it was written in 2022, and I found a lot of 2022 um, sentiments kind of put in a early 60s setting, and that doesn't quite work because things were different back then. I think she could have done a little bit more research or been a little bit more truthful about history. But otherwise, and don't pay attention to Goodreads or ratings anywhere because you might be surprised. A book that you don't think you would like, you might be surprised and actually like it. So those were my audiobooks. My husband and I finished reading Wuthering Heights. I'm not sure what my husband thought about this. I keep trying to ask him, so what did you think? What did you think? He won't tell me. It was okay. That's basically what he says. Uh, but at least now he knows what the book is like instead of just the movie, the Emerald Fennel movie. And now he also knows I've had the experience of reading my favorite book with my husband. So I am glad for that experience. I don't know if he's glad for it, but he did it with me. So he read the book with me. My daughter, we did finish the Chronicles of Narnia. If you've been watching our videos, we've been talking about the Chronicles of Narnia for a long time. And if you've been watching our videos, you know that we have been reading it in publication order, not necessarily in chronological order. So in this past month, we finished The Horse and His Boy, The Magician's Nephew, and The Last Battle. So kind of had cookies to celebrate our finishing of the Chronicles of Narnia. She was kind of sad when it was done. She's like, "Oh." We also read with my daughter Wild Robot. This is actually a reread for us, or was a reread for us. This is actually her favorite book. So I'm glad she's found her favorite until she finds another favorite. But hopefully she'll always have this in her heart. It's a really good book. I don't know what she just said, but she says she will. But this is just basically about a robot who is in a shipwreck and ends up on a wild island. And of course, she doesn't really belong there, so she has to learn how to adjust, and the animals have to learn how to adjust to her. It's a nice book. A little sad. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little sad. We finished this Women Who Dared book. We've been dipping in and out of this book for quite some time, so we finally finished up. Basically, it gives little one-page biographies of women. This is Ida Lewis. Women who kind of made a difference in our world. Women who kind of went beyond the stereotype of women, and especially for their times. We have women wrestlers in here. We have the first female doctor in the United States. Of course, Amelia Earhart, Molly Brown, just a whole bunch of women. There's a balloonist, which I thought was fun. But her name is Sophie Blanchard. She's from France. Oh, here's the wrestling woman. Her name was Mary Lillian Ellison. You can actually look these people up, see what they really look like. This is written by Linda Skiers and illustrated by Livy Gosling. So Livy always has her illustrations of the women, but you can look them up and see what they really look like. This one's a boxer, but so it's just fun, kind of inspired, letting little girls know that they can do anything they want, even things that aren't for women. It's like it's okay to be a motorcycle queen. It's okay to be a wrestler. It's okay to go exploring. It's okay to be tough. Women could do anything. We also read Aphmau, Searching for Home. This is written by the YouTuber Aphmau. Yeah, she's another YouTuber. Yeah, my daughter wants you to check Aphmau out. She is a gamer. She will play games. Her real name is Jessica Bravura, whatever. And this is just a graphic novel. And basically, Aphmau is new to her school, so she throws herself a birthday party, hoping she can make new friends. Invites pretty much anybody to come to her birthday party. But when she makes her wish, she wishes that she was tough and cool and brave as she is in her video games. Well, in making that wish, she turned her whole town into a video game town. So they had to figure out how to turn it back to normal. Yeah. Quite frankly, it's not something I'm into, but my daughter, she loves it. She's a gamer. We also read Pizza and Taco. This is very short book. It's also a graphic novel. The subtitle is Dare to Be Scared. This is by Stephen Shaskin. And it's basically about Pizza and Taco decide to watch scary movies. And, they get scared, but then they want to pretend like they're not scared. So they dare each other to go hunt for ghost peppers. And then so they go hunting for ghost peppers. Not much to it. It's cute. Okay. So those are what we finished reading. So let's go to what we're currently reading. I am in the middle of 3 books, and I used to think that I could only read 1 book at a time, but I found there's a lot of when you read multiple books, you can find connections there that you normally wouldn't find if you just read them one by one. And I'll tell you what I mean when I show you the books I've been reading. So this is The Copper Promise by Jen Williams. Again, I'm not going to say too much about these books. I'm going to tell you more what they're about in our next video, next wrap-up video. Copper Promise by Jen Williams. That is high epic fantasy, very dark epic fantasy. I am reading Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I've heard some people say this is fantasy. It says on here, according to the back here, it's science fiction. I would say it's more magical realism. Basically, it involves time travel. So whatever category, genre you want to put that in, that's what it is. So that's Kindred. I am also reading This Woven Kingdom by Tahira Mafi. Now, what I've discovered, the reason why it's very good, well, good for me at least, and it might be beneficial to you to read multiple books at a time, is one thing I noticed, these are books that have almost nothing to do with each other. They could all be considered fantasy, I suppose, but really totally different books. And at the same time, I was listening to lessons in chemistry as an audiobook. And what I discovered is in each of those books, the 4 books, there's an oppressor who, it focuses mainly on people who are outside of society and they are being oppressed. And one thing that the oppressor does not like is for the people they are oppressing to be educated. Because if they're educated, that means their oppression doesn't make sense. If you know what I mean. One thing it's scary for the oppressor to be faced with somebody who's actually smarter and more educated than you are. And that happens in all 4 of the books I was talking about. Here we have a Black woman. This is written in 1979, but it's set in 1976. So we have a Black woman who time travels to the antebellum South. So she has the oppression of white people. And then in Lessons in Chemistry, we have oppression of women. Here we have oppression of miscreants, I guess you would say, people who are kind of outlaws, and kind of a class division too. And this one is a class division, and kind of a race. Apparently in this book there's 2 races, Clay and Jen. I guess Jen is kind of a genie type people. They're more magical. But we have division of class and race. And in every single one of those books, it is mentioned how people get scared when they find out the people they're oppressing, they're educated, that they're smart, that they have personality, that they actually are much better than they are. So it's kind of an interesting connection between all 4 of them. My husband and I currently are reading Fool by Christopher Moore. This is a satiric retelling of King Lear. And I'm not sure. I don't think my husband's enjoying this too well. Sorry, but we actually got this book from his brother, my husband's brother. He gave us several Christopher Moore books. I don't think my husband has the same sense of humor as his brother, but it's interesting. Don't read it thinking that you're going to get high class William Shakespeare, because it really is, it's crass, it's dirty. Oh, I forgot to mention the audiobook that I'm reading or listening to currently is also crass. The title itself is bad. It's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F Word by Mark Manson. And this is the other one where I read the reviews and I didn't think I was going to like it. I'm like, but I'm liking it so far. And I might change my mind by the end of the month, but so far it's not as bad as people said it was. Again, I felt like a lot of their complaints were unwarranted. Yeah. So anyway, with our daughter, we decided to go back to old fairy tales. She's had this book since she was a baby, but we decided to go back and read some fairy tales. So this is Once Upon a Time, and has different fairy tales and folk tales. Each story has a different author and a different illustrator, so you get different kinds of drawings and different adaptations of the stories. There's the Wild Swans. Yeah, that's Elisa and the Magic Doll. Of course, this is the one we read last night, the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I just wanted to kind of revisit the classic fairy tales. And my daughter found out that one of her friends is also doing this with her family, going back to the fairy tales. So that's kind of nice. They have that to discuss with each other. As a family, we are also reading The Key to Rondo by Emily Rada. If you watch our videos, you would recognize this as the blind date with the book that we picked up. So we haven't got very far in it yet, but we're currently reading that. And since my daughter's a gamer, we are reading Eyes of the Enderman. The next two books I'm going to show you, they're library books because she signed up for the library reading program. So we'll be picking up a lot of library books for her, and we'll kind of let you know what she picked up. But Eyes of the Enderman, this is a Minecraft Iron Sword Academy book. This is written by Caleb Zane Hewitt, if I remember correctly. Yes, Caleb Zane Hewitt. And again, I kind of don't get it. I think my daughter understands it more than I do. I'm a fossil. I'm a dinosaur. I can do Minecraft. We are also reading, this is what I find interesting, Disgustology. Talks about disgusting things. Go through disgusting body parts and disgusting animals, disgusting germs. Look, here's salmonella. Yeah, we talk about salmonella. Look, it's hot flies and maggots. So yeah, we get to read about disgusting things. Who doesn't like that? So that is what we have read and what we are currently reading. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you get some ideas of what you might try to pick up. I know none of these books are actually really new books, but sometimes it's fun to pick up some of the old books that have been around for a while, the books that we may have missed when they were new. I hope you have ideas if you have a family for kids to read. And the reason I tell you about books I read with my husband is because that is a very special routine that we have, is to read a chapter a night in a book that we're reading together. And it might be something you and your partner might want to take up together if you like reading books. If your partner doesn't like to read books, try and make them do it anyway, because you never know, they might learn to like reading books. But anyway, I've blabbered on enough, so I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you want, if you please. It does help my channel. And I will see you next week.